Welcome to my test kitchen. This is where my team and I ponder life's great mysteries. Things like, what's in the secret sauce? Or, what are those 11 herbs and spices? Or, how do you work lentils into an average food lifestyle? I mean, if you're a health food nut like I am, then you already know all about lentils. Too easy. But what if you're an average cook with an average family and an average food lifestyle? How do you amp things up a little bit? How do you work lentils into that? Well, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is just cook some off, a little boiling water, no big deal, and then stir them into anything, like meatloaf, for instance. Let me show you how. Here's everything you need to whip up a batch of super tasty meatloaf. Meatloaf with a few lentils thrown in, and maybe a few other freestyle twists. Think of it this way. Meatloaf is really just a giant meatball squashed down. Because really, meatloaf is just taking advantage of ground beef's natural ability to cook and hold a lot of other ingredients as it cooks. In other words, you can stir a whole bunch of flavor into ground beef and then cook it, and the beef will hold that flavor in suspension. That's the kind of thing we say in a test kitchen, but it's true. The beef holds on to those flavors. So as I look at these ingredients, there's a couple of different categories here. There's ingredients that clearly are designed to add flavor, herbs, spices. Ingredients that are clearly designed to add moisture. Things like, believe it or not, oatmeal. More on that later. And things that help the meatloaf hold together. And that's where 2 eggs come in. Now here's an ingredient that adds both flavor and moisture, tomato paste. And because it's so thick, the easiest way to actually mix it into the ground beef is by first mixing it with the eggs. Why not use all the tomato paste? I mean, it's just going to add flavor. Why not? Next, the ground beef. And just throw it right in. Then, chop in an onion, and the bigger the onion the better, because obviously a bigger onion adds more flavor. And take the time to cut the onion into the smallest possible pieces, because smaller pieces are easier to mix. The onion will obviously add lots of flavor, but it will also add a whole bunch of moisture. Onions are north of 90% moisture. Now at this point, there's enough added moisture here that you actually need to add some sort of ingredient to grab that moisture and hold on to it. And that's where breadcrumbs come in. Breadcrumbs are a very common ingredient in a meatloaf mixture. But oatmeal flakes will do the exact same thing. And now would be a good time to add some lentils, but not raw lentils. There's simply not enough moisture in here for raw lentils to cook. So I've already cooked some off. That's what these are here. And this is equally simple. This is nothing other than 1 cup of lentils and 3 cups of water simmered for about 20 minutes or so until the lentils are tender. Simple, easy, tasty, and perfect for meatloaf. A cup or so. And now for some seasoning. And this is definitely one of the best parts about making meatloaf, because meatloaf is very strongly flavored. There is nothing subtle about the flavor of meatloaf. There's room here for a lot of flavor, whether they're oregano, sage, tarragon, rosemary, thyme, anything you happen to have. 3-4 tablespoons, even a mixture, whatever you want to do. 1 tablespoon oregano, a tablespoon of sage, and a tablespoon of thyme. And last but not least, 1 teaspoon of salt. And now you get to play. Because I got a lot of tools in this kitchen. I'm loaded for bear with tools, but nothing mixes meatloaf better together than your hands. But before you get in there and get all dirty, get your pan ready to go in the oven. Playtime. One of the best parts about eating meatloaf is definitely that crispy, crusty exterior. And one of the best ways to get there is to actually paint some flavor on, make a glaze. And that's what's going on here. This is how I like to finish my meatloaf. 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of ketchup, a big heaping spoonful of any mustard, and a big heaping spoonful of horseradish. Just whisk all this together and spoon it all over the top of the works. And now you can get all fancy and call this horseradish, mustard, brown sugar, glazed, lentil beef pate scented with thyme, tarragon, oregano, and onions. Or you could just call it dinner. It's a lot easier. This oven is set at 375 degrees, the perfect temperature for this, sort of a medium to medium high temperature. A perfect temperature for both cooking the meat through, but also for glazing. That nice glaze on the outside does well at this temp. So really the question becomes, well, how do you know when the meat is done? How long is it going to take? It's going to take about 40 to 45 minutes. But if you're really concerned about food safety here, your very best bet is to use a meat thermometer. Because at 160 degrees internal temperature, that meat is cooked through and safe. And this is more than just safety, because at say 170 or 180, 190, the meat is dramatically overcooked. And at the molecular level, all the little meat strands literally break and lose moisture. They drop moisture, so it dries out. So this isn't just about safety, it's also about flavor. 160, done, safe, dinner's ready. And now it's done. The most important part of my job, how's it taste? First of all, it tastes moist. By no means is it dried out. It's got a nice aromatic meaty flavor to it with little bursts of lentils, which match the meaty flavor of the beef easily. And there's a nice sweet glaze, almost crispy crusty on the outside. Bottom line, this meatloaf is awesome. This would work on any table, anywhere. Hey, today's lentils. Get them on your plate.